I grew up in Calgary and went to high school here and so on. And my first job in Alberta was at the University of Alberta. And I was the Dean of the Faculty of Arts there, very large faculty. And I would watch what was happening in Calgary when I was up there, and I'd watch with interest. And I was always impressed with it was very nimble. And U of C being young, they tended to be very active in trying to build the university and so on. So I guess there's the old expression, you can take the boy out of the West, but you can't take the West out of the boy. And so some people contacted me and suggested I might want to take a look at this. And then when the headhunter did, I was very interested in doing so. At the very beginning, it's sort of, they're looking at me and I'm looking at them. And so I had a more dated view because I went from Alberta to Brock. And so I had 8 years in between. So I had to do some homework and get up to speed, and then in the interview get a sense of what was going on. And my feeling was that a lot could be accomplished at the U of C in the sense that you have a very vibrant community. Calgary was always a can-do place, and they fought long and hard to get a university. And when they finally got it, they were proud of it and they wanted it to be a success. And so I felt that anything that we did, we had to be in close contact with the community. So what I was interested in was let's build on our strengths. Let's keep in touch with our outside community and get a feel for what they're interested in and where they would like to see things go. And let's develop a strategic plan in terms of where we want to go. I think you have to be careful as a newcomer coming in that you don't have a sense that you have all the answers, because you may not know what the questions are. And so it's best to get to know people and whatever. But I had that sort of rough skeletal idea that I just mentioned in mind, and then I would fill in the data once we got to know each other. When I came here, the context was very difficult. This was a very tough government who had a single objective, the Klein government, and that was to cut the deficits in the budget. So here we are with a city that's growing, and they want their children to go to U of C. We're having declining money available and an increase in demand. And so this created real pressures. When I came here, there'd already been these cuts and the morale was low. But what we tried to do was to deal with the circumstances and to do the best we could for the students, to do the best we could for our research and creative activities and so on. And when I look back, I think that the community pulled together, the university community pulled together, and under very tough circumstances, I think had a very good record of achievement. I visited all the high schools in the province and said, we're interested and let's keep and suddenly we started to get a few more applications. And one of the things that the high school people told me was that the students were telling them they'd like to come to Calgary, but there's not enough residence space. We built Cascade Hall, and that was a student residence. We added, 400 or 500 beds, but there was no government money for that. And so we were the first in the province to have it self-funding. We got a mortgage, and the income that we generated from that paid off the mortgage. So I was very pleased that we were able to do things like that to move ahead. Of course, we weren't able to move at the speed we wanted to. Once the funding got better after I left, then that made a big difference. I'm proud that the community came together and that we were able to make some headway. The city was very vibrant and a lot of very bright people. And I think we were ahead of the curve in terms of opportunities for women and so on. And so there was a great buzz, and Calgary is going to be, we're going to be great. And not only that, but they were moving along beautifully. There was a lot of innovation, technology transfer going on, and you see with the GPS and all the landings, all those kinds of spin-offs. So there was a real interface there between the university and what was happening in the city. And one of the largest research type operations was Nortel. And Nortel had a very big presence in the community, and the university, we were very closely allied with the major players, which provided opportunities for our faculty members in terms of research, our graduate students for doing their research, and our undergraduates in terms of co-ops and the experiential, because I believe that not all the learning takes place in the classroom. Very important what happens there, but experiential. Getting experience through co-ops and other things are very. So Calgary was ideal in that sense. The media were very supportive of the university, with the exception of the major newspaper. They sort of liked to see what dirt they could dig out, and they liked the headlines and so on. So I'm trying to give you kind of a slice of what it was like. But on whole, you couldn't ask for a university to be in a better community. Calgary and the university are a wonderful fit. The breadth of students we have now, we put a lot of emphasis on the international component. We had a very, very strong international center, which was let sort of slip when I left. But we had Bill Warden, who was a former ambassador a Canadian ambassador to India and to Pakistan and so on. He had wonderful connections. So, for example, we had an agreement with the Gorbachev Institute in the Soviet Union, in Russia, after they changed from the Soviet to Russia. And he was here a number of times, and so we were doing, leading a consulting operation in Russia. We had more linkages with South American universities than just about any other university in the country and so on. And what we were trying to do was we were wanting to make those experiences available for our researchers and our teachers to go there, but also to bring international students here. Because if you think back to the financial context I was talking about, international students paid full fare. One of the most important things that we accomplished very early in the game was I had a series of breakfasts. Our board chair had a beautiful dining room at the top of the Nova building and overlooking, and so we would have 20 to 25 of the senior executives in Calgary for a couple of months, and I would listen. And they said, well, this is unusual. I mean, the university usually telling us stuff. They weren't listening. And so I said, well, I'm the new kid on the block. So what do you want to tell me that we should be doing? And that'll give us a sense of some of the planning we ought to do. And if it's a win-win, we'll go for it. And one of the things that they all said, without exception, was, we do not have enough graduates in computing science. We need people in information technology. We need people in computer science, and they're not available. And I said, well, hey, when I reported back to, I sent them all a letter saying, okay, this is what we've heard, and here's our top priority, because you've indicated that's your top priority. We didn't have the space, we didn't have the money for operating and whatever to do that, to go from where we were to where they thought we needed to be. But every one of those corporations have government relations people, and they have lobbying contacts and so on. So we were able to build the ICT building, and we were able to double the number of graduates we had, which business said, this is great. These people are listening. So I think that was one that was a very difficult fight in terms of the context that I mentioned, when they're cutting and cutting and cutting. That we were able to rally the Calgary community and interested parties and have it happen. So I'd like to see the U of C aim for a very bold a leadership role in terms of providing quality, innovative learning opportunities, because that's going to continue, I think, to be a very important part for universities. And also that we are really continuing to make our mark and to expand in terms of creativity and in terms of research. Research is it's more than just what happens in engineering and science. We have a responsibility, I think, to build all parts of our society, the arts and the humanities and so on. So that's what I would hope that we would aim for, sort of a leadership role, to be seen to be bold and not afraid, let's say daring, not afraid to take chances in order to try and be what Calgary, I think, has always tried to be, and that is to be unique. Just a favorite memory. Well, there's so many. I think it involved the students. For example, the hockey team. I play goal in hockey, and the hockey team. Hockey at the university level is very good. It's better than the Hitmen and so on. Excellent hockey, and we would only at Father Bauer Arena. We were only getting maybe 1,000 people. So I said to the athletic director, what can I do to help? Or what can university do to help to get our attendance up? And he said, well, I don't know. Have you got any ideas? Well, I said, what about take a shot at the president? And I said, between the second and the third period, you could sell little raffle tickets or whatever, and then you get a chance to take a shot, and anybody that scores wins a prize. And he said, well, let's try it. Well, we went from maybe 1,000 to 3,000.